This is a Two Front podcast.
EBITDA is the lazy man's shortcut to cash flow. Most in the dental industry, they want to talk about EBITDA, but they don't really talk about free cash flow. Free cash flow is ultimately your ability to generate cash and not burn cash is the way that you drive valuation. When you're doing that, guess what? You've got options now.
The only thing that matters is cash in and cash out.
The more that cash flow can persist into the future over time through your built out operations and systems and everything that goes with it, that drives value all day long.
Preach.
You got a crooked smile, well that don't bother me much. You double over, working double time, you double tough. I'll just shine it up until the sun hit like a glare. I gotta dare, get the up out the chair.
Ken, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Ingrid. I'm thrilled to be here and excited for this discussion.
Me too. I'll tell you a quick story. I guess, first of all, let me tell our audience that Ken Kaufman runs a company called AccruDent. He has built multiple group practices from the ground up, super successfully. He's got a book on dental finance. If there's anyone we want to ask about money when it comes to how to run your practice successfully, it's Ken. And so I'm really excited to ask you a bunch of questions because honestly, like when I graduated my ortho residency, I just had no idea what to focus on. And then when I built Two Front, I still had no idea for years. And so I just feel really grateful to be able to ask you some really direct questions. So hopefully we can give our listeners lots of tangible, valuable answers.
All right, we'll see. Let's get at it. I like it.
Well, first of all, just tell me your story. Tell me what got you. You and I spoke before this, obviously, and you have such an amazing story leading up to you running this business with your son now. So I would just love to share with our audience your story.
Sure. There's the pre-dental and then there's the dental. I've been in dental now for 20 years. So I'll just kind of start. So I did an undergrad in business, and then I started a business, and it failed, by the way. I learned a lot from that experience. And then I got on with a startup company and we grew that to 100 million over 4 years. And I'm like, I love
Wow.
this is what I'm doing for the rest of my life. Decided to do an MBA to try to sort of accelerate that process. I did the MBA and then got a CFO job a year out of MBA school, which I was way too young to have and way too inexperienced to get that type of responsibility. But
Hold on.
learned
How old were you?
Let's see, that would have put me at 2000. I was 20, 25. Is that right? No, I was
That's
older than that. I was 26,
amazing.
27. Yeah, it's crazy.
Still,
But
that's amazing.
yeah, so it was a great run. And then after that, I started doing some consulting, and that's when I came into dentistry. There was a hygienist and a dentist that had built out 2 Winnebagos for dentistry. They'd put 4 operatories in them. They just crammed everything into that to try to make a mobile dental clinic. So I started there, and then I was involved with the Nomad business, the battery-powered handheld X-ray device, and
Oh,
ran that business for a while, and we sold that to Danaher. And I always like to just mention here 2 things about it. Number one is we got better than a 20x multiple, but it was
wow.
also a product it's different than selling dental practices or groups because it has intellectual property around it. So it was a different play. Then I got into the DSO side of the world, and I was at Community Dental Partners for several years. We grew that to almost 80 locations. And then more recently, I was with Nuvia. We grew that from 5 to 40 locations, and they're still going strong. And decided it was time to step out and start doing my own thing. And I have a passion for helping those emerging groups that are struggling and trying to figure out how to grow and get the financial part of it right, as well as everything else. Just having run as many DSOs as I have, I just love helping them work through the challenges and issues that they've got.
Okay, amazing. I've got so many questions for you. First, let's talk about that 20-time multiple. So, something that I always and honestly still today struggle with is how to understand people's multiple. So, you mentioned that this is a different kind of company than dental practices because they've got intellectual property. So, I'm
Mhm.
curious in this case also, is this a multiple on top line revenue or on EBITDA?
EBITDA.
Okay, because sometimes people talk about it from a top line revenue perspective.
Yep, that's right.
So why is that why is that the case?
You're asking me why is it that the valuation was so high in this instance?
2 questions. Why was the valuation so high, and why are multiples talked about in EBITDA versus top line? Like, why are people just consistent with that?
So let's start with the EBITDA. The first thing I want to say about EBITDA is the lazy man's shortcut to cash flow. It's not cash flow, but it is the shortcut that everybody uses. And it's very easy to pull out the information from an income statement that will show you, hey, here's what your EBITDA is. The interesting thing is in determining a business's value, you have the two factors here. You have what's the EBITDA, or in essence, what is the cash flow that's being generated from the business? And then you have this multiple, which is like this weird euphoric. What? How do we even get to that multiple? And what does that mean? Well, if you go and look in the stock market and you see Apple and it's currently trading at whatever it is, I won't say anything because if somebody watches this 10 years from now, we just won't date ourselves too bad. But the the place where the multiple comes in is it is driven by what are you going to be able to do in the future? And the buyer is going to look at your business and say, is this a well-run business? Is this a business where I can come in and step in? It's got systems and processes. It's not dependent on one person. We have doctors and doctors stay, they don't leave. I mean, right, the biggest asset of a DSO is the doctors and their ability to treat patients and take care of patients. And the way that gets monetized from a valuation perspective is, are you running a great business? And the better business you're running and the more replicable and scalable that is over time, well, as an investor, I want to buy that type of business that's going to grow a ton, as opposed to a business that is just kind of barely surviving. And they think that, well, private equity will come in and put a bunch of money in and give us this big valuation. Well, guess what? All that money just goes into the hands of the ownership changing hands. There's no money left to go and actually build the business any further. The expectation is that the business is ready to grow, and that's where we get into like our 5-year modeling, and we do all these things so we can be ridiculously confident about that future. And then the more confident you are that you can get there, you've got validated assumptions that drive all of it, the more that multiple just goes up. You got your EBITDA times your multiple, and all of a sudden you're not at a 4 or 5, you're at a 6, you're at a 7, you're at an 8, you're at a 10. And it all just depends on that future cash flow. EBITDA, short man's or lazy man's shortcut, right? It's it's all about what is that cash flow going to look like in the future, and then your buyer is putting money on the table to the owners for what they built and what it's going to do in the future. Does that make sense?
And this yes, and this stuff is so complicated to someone who's trying to do dentistry, trying to run their business, trying to hire, trying to do everything that it takes, right, to keep a thriving business. So let's dive into this. My first question for you is how does a dentist get a higher multiple when selling their practice?
Absolutely. The number one way is building a phenomenal business where you've got a nice funnel of associates coming in. You have a system to keep them retained, whether that's equity or through other initiatives or those sorts of things. And you are a clear operator, and you're building out a future that looks very, very bright and that's realistic. And you know, because a lot of times businesses will go through something called a quality of earnings evaluation
Okay.
before they sell. And the reason why that's done is because they're trying to understand how replicable are the earnings? How much into the future are those going to persist? Because that's what gets investors excited is, hey, this is a business that's working, it's going great. And with a little light touch, maybe we can, tweak a few things and then we're just gonna let this thing grow. And not only are the people that sold the business, they got their monetization, but that new buyer and the new ownership is going to be able to grow it further so that they can obviously receive a return on the capital that they put in. Does that make sense?
100%. And you bring up a really good.
You know that sinking feeling when the same patient keeps coming back for crown after crown? Yeah, we've all been there. Here's the thing: what if we could actually prevent all that mess with a simple bite correction? That's where we come in at Two Front. We handle the whole Invisalign process for you. I'm talking zero clean checks, zero lab bills, barely any chair time. Oh, and we take on the liability too. Your patient gets a healthy bite that'll save them thousands down the road. You get to be the hero who prevented years of dental drama. It's honestly a no brainer. Check out Two Front and start helping your patients dodge a lifetime of dental work today.
Point about equity. So, my next question for you is, how should groups be thinking about equity for associates?
They should be thinking about it a lot. I think it should be number one, two, or three on their prioritization list. In today's day and age, DSOs that are going to succeed are the ones who know how to attract and retain associates. Period. If you have no associates, you've got no business. Like it is the core of everything that happens in dentistry. Everything revolves around that. And so anything and everything you can do to take care of those associates, whether you want to train them or you want to listen to, hey, there are modalities that they'd like to try out and do some CE, and maybe we need to buy a little equipment or something to so that they can take that modality on, whatever it is, you've got to be doing that. And from my perspective, I think equity is a very effective way to help people feel bought in. And it can happen at a practice level where I can get equity in the practice I'm working in. It could happen at the holdco level. In some instances, I really don't care. I think it absolutely has to be a top priority, because if you don't have a system and a process to retain and take care of your associates, it's just this flywheel that never gets traction. You just keep going around and around and around. So I think equity is a massive piece of building a great DSO.
This is something I feel so strongly about because now that I run my company, Two Front, which operates as a tech platform, but really, like, we are an orthodontic company, right? Like, we are providing orthodontic services to dentists and group practices. And every person at my company has equity, that can get equity, people in the United States. And I can't imagine not giving them equity because everyone acts like it's their business. Everyone is an owner. Everyone is here to build. I don't think anyone's going anywhere, knock on wood, but it's their business. And for these dentists that are working so hard, I can't imagine working that hard and not having a piece of what I'm working for. So, for group practices that are listening, how do you suggest that groups think about giving equity to their associates in terms of quantity, vesting schedules, things like that?
Yeah, and there are a lot of levers to pull here. We could do probably 5 episodes on just this topic if we wanted to really go in. So this will be sort of a high level discussion. But I think the first thing you want to do is you want to decide: do I want my associates to be motivated at their practice that they're working in and have a piece of that, or do I want them to have a participation in the holding company, the overarching entity of the organization? So that's the first place to start. And I will tell you this, Ingrid, my experience with this has been, and I also need to be clear on this: I have never met a doctor that isn't brilliant and isn't super talented and has a lot of great things going for them. All right. The things that I'm talking about here, that I'm going to talk about here, um, again, I love doctors. Doctors are smart. But when it comes to these things, if you don't have experience ever owning equity, you can have, as an operator, if you give equity to someone who is a little immature, doesn't know or understand how these things work, They will do things like, "Hey, I'm a joint venture partner in this de novo location. It just opened yesterday. When do I get my first distribution?" And
Mm.
I'm saying that because that's not a bad question, but it's misdirected because you don't get a distribution the day your business opens. It has to run its cycle until it gets profitable. That's when distributions can come and when you can participate and when your equity can grow and when it can build. And so when you're working with associates, the first thing you want to do is you need to train them how business works. You need to train them how equity works. And you need to give them a skill set that they can build up over time so that they can be a good owner versus one who doesn't get it. And so they're sometimes going to do things that could be hurtful or, just cause a lot of wasted time and effort. And I've seen this because at Community Dental Partners, we had a lot of joint venture partner dentists, and we actually just got to a point where we just would train them on how business works and how financial statements need to be looked at and how investment works and just how everything works so that they could be good owners. So I think we have a responsibility to help those that we're giving ownership to really understand how it all works and give them the training. Does that make sense?
100%. And I think honestly, it's not just associates. Like I think it's everyone. I think most people don't understand how equity works. On it, look, I don't understand how it fully works. I know how many, I know basically how our equity works at our company, but there's rounds of dilution, and then how do you think about dilution, and how do you think about valuation? So I'm curious, do you have any sort of resource that people could go to if they're being offered equity and they want to learn about how it works and how much it can be worth in the long term?
Yeah, I don't have something like immediate off the shelf, that I could hand out, but if you just did a quick search, like Investopedia is a great place to go, and obviously ChatGPT will have some interesting information or any of those other, AI tools. Um, but yeah, there's opportunities for education, in this, all over the place. Just a quick search on the internet will get you there.
I think there needs to be like an equity for dummies. Maybe there is. Now I'm gonna bite my tongue. But like, even being 7 years into Two Front, I still find it so confusing at different valuations. And I'm lucky I've got my operations and finance team, so I don't feel like I have to know how everything works. Like I've got people I can
Mhm.
ask if I can ask questions all the time. But I think, I think about these groups that are giving their associates equity, and I'm like, I just hope that you get the kind of counsel that you need because honestly, like I've tried to do deep searches and I still find it confusing for my specific situation. So
Mm.
I just hope that associates out there are getting the resources that they need. But I like your idea on Investopedia. So
Well, and I think it's critical that the DSO that's granting the equity, they should have some responsibility to help train that associate and help them along besides any of the other, research or talking to the attorney that's helping get put it all together. Yeah, that's how I think about it.
I'm totally with you. And I guess for our listeners, I want to mention don't feel bad or about asking questions. If you still don't know what it means, keep asking, keep digging, keep getting to the root of this because the truth is that it's extremely complicated and you want to know what questions to ask. You want to know what it means to invest to get equity in your practice versus the whole company. What's the difference between that equity, at last round's valuation versus future rounds valuation? What's your exit strategy? When will I get returns? So it's just super complicated. But honestly, the good thing now is like you can kind of ask ChatGPT, what questions should I be asking and ask those
Mhm.
questions and get really direct answers, which is kind of amazing.
Yeah, yeah, that's right. It's the day and age we live in.
Thank God, right? So I've got a couple more questions for you that I'd love, these were questions that I was thinking about myself that if I had a practice right now, what I would want to know. Considering that you know so much about the finance world in dentistry in particular. So what makes a practice truly valuable for an exit?
The thing that makes the practice the thing that drives the valuation, it's 2 things. It's how much free cash flow are you generating? And when I say this, what I'm referencing here is does your business consume cash or does it generate cash? Now, in the startup mode, when you're starting a brand new business, you're burning cash like crazy, right? And that's just how it is. And I find that most in the dental industry, they want to talk about EBITDA, but they don't really talk about free cash flow. Free cash flow is ultimately that is when I say EBITDA is the lazy man shortcut to cash flow. That's what I'm saying is that's your ability to generate cash and not burn cash is the way that you drive valuation. And the more your business is driving cash flow, because when you're doing that, guess what? You've got options now. If you want to take some money out, you can. If you want to go build a new practice, if you want to invest in these different opportunities, you want to take some of that equity that you've built up and give it to associates. Like you have so many options, and the more cash flow that you can generate, the more your business is worth. And the more that that cash flow can persist into the future over time through your, built out operations and systems and everything that goes with it, that drives value all day long.
Preach. I raised close to $7 million for Two Front, and I would say that's over 7 years. For the first couple years, I stressed so hard over like understanding my P&L and my balance sheet and all these things that honestly are just not my forte whatsoever. And
Just
then I got really lucky, and one day my sister's partner, who runs a big tech company, he's European, told me, Ingrid, that the only thing that matters is cash in and cash out. That is all that matters, to focus on nothing else. Keep your spreadsheet on what you're spending money on and what the cash is coming in. And just make sure you're getting way more cash in than cash out. And that simple like formula, he has no idea. Those like two sentences changed my life. Like that was like I had underlying anxiety about finances for years. And then I was like, all right, there's two things I've got to worry about. So for our listeners, I hope that that's a helpful tip.
Yeah, and I'll add one more thing because the way to track this is a little bit tricky on the financial statements because your income statement doesn't show cash. Your balance sheet doesn't show cash generation. It's actually on the third statement, which generally gets left behind and isn't even most accountants don't even show this to their clients, but it's the statement of cash flow. And all we do there is it's a simple subtraction problem. We look at cash from operations, we subtract capital expenditures during the period, and that's your free cash flow. And that's the one you want to see, that generating cash, not consuming cash.
I love that so much. So, my next question for you is, how should you leverage your cash flow forecast to run your business?
Oh, this is the magic, I think. We we for all of our clients, we put in place a 13-week cash flow forecast. And I've been doing this for a long time. You know that I wrote a book about all this, and we call this the sleep at night report. And the reason why is because if you're an entrepreneur, you have at one point in your life looked at your bank account, looked at when payroll is due and said, holy crap, I'm in trouble. Okay. Everybody's gone through this. This is, in fact, I feel like that's the badge of honor. Like you don't get to call yourself an entrepreneur until you're 5 days
Oh
from
my
payroll
God.
and you don't have any money in the bank, right? That's
Facts.
it's just part of how it works. And it's not for the faint of heart, as you know, as you're building your amazing business. But I- yeah, the key thing here is with the cash flow, the ability to see the next 13 weeks projected out in cash flow, that just calms everything down. I know really smart entrepreneurs. If you give them 3 days to solve their payroll problem, they may not get there. If I give you 13 weeks to solve the problem, entrepreneurs can solve that, in their sleep and not even have to think about it or worry about it. That's what the statement of cat or that's what the 13-week cash forecast is designed to do. Remove the anxiety, give total clarity to cash consumption or to accumulation. Again, I'll preach this all day long. But that cash forecast is just super, super valuable to helping with all of that and giving you real good visibility on, are you generating or burning cash? And really quickly, you can turn that around.
And isn't that all we want, to sleep well at night?
It's so true. I was just talking with somebody earlier that had that just went through a sleep apnea journey. It's a really cool story he was telling, but he especially would agree with you on that.
I mean, it's all we want, just to sleep easy.
That's right.
So, speaking of sleeping easy, I'm gonna ask you some more questions so that our listeners can sleep easy. How do you recommend tactically using a budget to grow your dental practice?
All right. So most people hate the word budget. There's a negative thought process. Yeah, it messes with our mind. Here, I want to change. I've got a completely different frame for everybody, so you can now realize that the budget is the most cool thing ever. Remember how I was saying that valuation is driven by the future and the how your operations are going to be successful in the future and the
Yep.
value and the cash flow you're going to generate in the future. Well, what actually drives that is the ability to understand your business so well that you can make assumptions that will be accurate 5 years from now. The way you do that is you create a budget, and then every month you look and see, and you look at what's called the variance report, which is, here's what I said I was going to do, and here's what I did. And we learn over and over. And when we use the budgeting process to train ourselves to learn, what are the assumptions that I should be that I can validate that drive my business model. And if every month you look at, here's what we thought we were going to do, and here's what actually happened, and this is on all the line items from your top line gross production all the way down to your supplies and everything else, you start to get really good as an operator of the business, because you say, okay, we missed on this one. So next month, let's change our assumption. Let's try something different. Let's do something different. Let's learn, why did we think this was going to happen, but this happened instead. So from my perspective, the budget is an iterative process that actually gets you so grounded into your business that you can be a phenomenal operator of it. And ultimately, that's going to drive the highest valuation of your business. And not that everybody has to be standing in line to sell their business, right? We may want just a nice cottage industry. It kicks off income for my family and everything's great. Or it could be that we want to sell the business, but the value creation, all of it comes back to this iterative process of what actually makes my business work and how do I do more of that?
It's kind of like your tool to wield your ship in whatever direction you want it to go, is what you make it sound like,
Yeah.
which is cool.
So, because you know, I can't tell you how many budgets I put together over the years. By you usually start it in January. Usually by February, we've blown something massive in the budget. It's like, why do we even do this then? Like we just and so when you stop focusing on what when you stop focusing on all of that and you focus on, we're just going to use it as our iterative process to learn to run our business better, game changer.
Do you have a story of how someone used a budget that changed their business?
Yeah. Um, I can think, actually, the first one that comes to mind is the Nomad business. When I got involved with that, it was a startup. They're building out a product, trying to get FDA clearance, and just going through that entire process. And we used that budget to do actually two different things. The first one is we used it to really hone in on what was happening in the business, because at the time I got involved, there wasn't a lot of clarity and all of that. And then the second thing we did is we were able to take all the assumptions that we worked through and we learned about. We were able to validate them, and then we were able to build a model that made it possible for us to go to the bank, raise more capital, so that we could keep on track with our development of the product so that we could ultimately start selling it to customers. So we were in that kind of cash burn phase, but we still were able to raise capital as a result because like we were so rock solid on understanding the fundamentals that make the business function that they're like, yeah, we see it, and we see that at this point in time, you guys are going to get over this hurdle, and so we're excited to loan money to you.
I love that. They realize that you know how to wield your ship.
Yeah, that's all they want, and that's why to me, valuation and confidence, they're the same thing.
Mm,
The more confident you are that you can execute in the future, the the bigger that paycheck is.
that's such a good way to put it. I love that. Okay, I've got some more questions for you. How are successful hold on one sec, my handwriting. How are successful dental groups structuring their finances?
So, the first and foremost thing that they're doing is they're getting to accrual accounting. This is something that's generally overlooked, and dismissed. I am an advocate, I'm a proponent of getting this right, and the reason why is because if you're doing cash basis accounting, which means it's just whatever comes in and out of the bank account, that's what gets put on your financial statements and so on and so forth. You're not looking at the accurate information. And what we need to care about looking at what happened yesterday, but what I actually care more about is the future. And if you tell me that your cash basis, that means I can't predict the future for you. There are no assumptions I can validate because all that's happening is your gross production's bouncing all around month to month. There's literally no consistency that we can get to. And so from my perspective, the first thing you've got to do is get to accrual accounting. And that's something that my firm does. When I started this, I said, I'm on a mission. I want to get to those emerging groups and I want to get them on accrual as fast as I can so that we can actually help them build out the business in the right way. So that'd be um, the first thing. The second thing is I am convinced that in dentistry, we do not get engaged with financial planning and analysis, or what's called FP&A work. We do not get that integrated into our business soon enough. This is the arm of the business where you're developing that confidence. You're doing the budgets, you're doing your rolling forecasts, you're doing all of these different things to project out the future. And but it takes time. You can't, you're going to get it wrong over and over again until bam, you get it right. And it's because it takes reps. So if you're thinking about, building the business, the FP&A component or financial planning analysis is critical. So first thing is accrual accounting. Next is to engage in all of the amazing tools that financial planning and analysis brings to the table. And then the only other piece, there's two other pieces I'd add. The next one is figure out doctor pay. I know this sounds probably small and trivial, but if everybody that's listening to this that owns a DSO or operates a DSO right now, or even a small group, when I say doctor pay, they're all cringing. And the reason why is because it's a disaster. It's always a disaster. Everybody struggles with it. It's hard to get the right data. There's always the argument of does the hygienist get credit for the X-ray or does the doctor? And like you just have there's so many factors there. So we've been successful at helping groups get that really cleaned up and tight. And then the last piece is really getting a handle on all of your data so that you know and you have confidence that all of your data is right and accurate. So those are the four places. Get to accrual, get to financial planning analysis, get your doctor pay squared, and then make sure you've got all of your data organized and just dialed in so that you can run the business the way you need to.
Sounds like a lot. So if I'm a dentist who owns a practice, or I'm a dentist who owns a group practice, or I just own a group practice and finance isn't my forte, how do I know that my finance team is doing a good job?
Okay. the core base here needs to be an income statement, a balance sheet, and a statement of cash flow that's being presented to you on a monthly basis. That's kind of the core foundation. Then, but there's a lot more that needs to ultimately come out of all that. But that's where you've got to start, and you need somebody who's really going to listen to you and who's going to teach you. And like you said, Ingrid, somebody who's not going to sort of shame you for asking questions, but somebody who's got a teacher's heart to some degree to help get you educated. Because I know so many of the like bookkeeping firms and things that will they're great at taking all your data and putting it together and throwing out a financial statement, but to actually have a discussion that's strategic about where's the business going and those things. So I think the finance side is there's the technical element of looking historically at what's happened. There's got to be a relationship that really helps the entrepreneur get comfortable with what's going on and understand it. And then there's got to be the forward-looking element that it has to be there. And if they're not willing to do that for you, you've got to figure out a way to solve for that. Because again, the only way you're going to know how to build and grow your business is if you're pushing yourself to understand the future through the lens of today.
So the short answer is, from my understanding, is you just have to learn it with a partner who's going to run it for you.
Yep. And I
That's the
think
truth.
abdicating the responsibility for it, I think owners and doctors are missing the opportunity. It doesn't mean they have to be an expert, but it does mean that they should understand some of the core principles that drive it, and it'll make them a better operator over time. I've yet to see an entrepreneur that once they understand how to how, what how to do things in the business that create cash accumulation as opposed to consumption, like then they're on fire. Like you can't stop them once they understand the levers that need to be pulled to build and grow the business. So that's I I could talk about this one all day long because this is where the magic happens, and it's when it clicks and that business model becomes really clear, and everybody knows, oh, okay, this is what we need to be doing, and we need to be doing more of it.
It's challenging. It's challenging because you think, "Oh, there's so many other things I have to do," and it's like, "Do I have to learn the finance piece? Do I have to learn the legal piece? Do I have to learn the HR piece?" But I mean, from my experience, what I've seen is you're totally right. You do have to know the finance piece. It's your job as the owner to keep money in the bank and make sure that you're gonna continue growing and always make payroll.
Yep. And you can, fractional CFOs, all these people are out there, and there are definitely resources to help with it. And you don't ever need to feel like you know it all or that you are the, consummate expert in this area. But to get a level of competence, I think it's absolutely critical for operators to get that base level of competence in finance.
I love it. So you already kind of answered this one, but I want to ask it again, which is cash versus accrual accounting. Why does that even matter?
Oh boy, loaded question. Love it. Did I write that question? I should have written that question. That was a good question. Accuracy, period. If all I got was a one word answer, because it means what I'm looking at is accurate and right, and it means that over time I can validate those assumptions so that I can build my plan for the future. I mean, I and then there are a couple of other reasons why accrual is superior. It is gap compliant. So if you're big enough, and this year we had one client that got to a point with their bank where the bank wasn't going to loan them any more money for acquisitions until they got gap compliant financials. Which
Mm,
the primary element of that is you have to convert to accrual to be gap compliant, and so that there's attestation is what it's called in the finance world. You get to stages where you have to do it in order to raise money, and honestly, it's a good discipline to ultimately put in play, so that as your organization grows, um, you can raise more capital, but also it just shows the world that you're a good operator and you know what you're doing. And somebody from the outside has gone through your numbers and said, yeah, this is dialed.
Well, there you go. For all of our listeners, that's one easy action item for today. So, my next
Ingrid,
question for
can I
you,
throw one other thing out there?
of
I'm sorry, I
course.
didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yes.
Um, we're doing a fun little thing I'm testing right now from a marketing perspective, and I'd be happy to make this available to any of the listeners who want to take us up on it. But it's this: if one of your listeners, if they'll let us take over doing the bookkeeping, whatever price they're paying for it, we'll take it over at that. We will implement the accrual accounting for free. We'll just do it for them, and we'll keep it running for them as long as they are a client of ours. That's how passionate I am that this has to happen, and we've got to get the industry to this sooner than later.
I love that so much, and that's why I love experts. So, for our listeners, how much would someone normally pay to convert to accrual accounting?
Oh boy. I mean, there's so many factors to that question. Let's just say whatever you're paying for bookkeeping, it probably would cost 8 to 10 times that.
Wow,
Yeah.
that's wild. And I totally get how that's a loaded question. People always ask me, of course, because of Two Front, how much should I be paying for Invisalign? And it's such a loaded question. So I won't even go there. Okay. My next question for you. Which financial metrics predict financial success for dental practices?
Free cash flow. Period. That's it. Okay, I can go further. Um, so yeah, I mean, this is where we start to get into like the KPI um, type of a discussion. I'm always happy to have it. In fact, if any of your listeners, like, I have a whole list of like my favorite KPIs and stuff. I'd be happy to share that out, or if you want me to send it to you, you want to share it out, that's fine. Um, Look, the key thing here is number one, do you have a doctor? Because if you don't have that, it's all over. Like you're shut down. So KPI number one is my doctor there? My next KPI is did they eat their Wheaties that morning? Are they excited to be there? Are they trained? Are they confident? Are they ready to do case presentation? Are they ready to talk to patients and engage? Right. That's like number one. Number two is, all right, do I have the right staff around them and enough of them to in order to make that work? And then the third one is, all right, and then let's see, like, how productive are we? And so we can just look at our gross production for the day and say, okay, how did we do today? How many patients did we serve? How much care did we deliver? What impact did we have on our community? That's everything beyond that is interesting, but these three things are like that. It's really all that matters. And I hate to oversimplify, but I do like to oversimplify. It's not, it is not that hard. And the, which metrics and who's going to measure this and let's measure that and let's do that. Everybody needs to just sort of figure out for themselves what is the most meaningful. But if you hit those three, you're done. That's it.
Cash, doctors, and people.
Yep.
That's all you need to be a successful dental practice.
Yep.
I love it. Okay,
And
I have
and
one
I
more
think
question.
I'll just add
Yep.
one more. I think it's the culture element, which
Hmm.
that's sort of the engagement and the, are did they show up wanting to work? Are they excited about the patients they're seeing and they're serving? Those kind of things.
Yeah, 100%. Everyone knows when you walk into dental practice and people aren't excited, you're gonna lose that patient immediately.
Yep.
Okay, there was a last question that I wanted to ask you, which is what financial blind spots are killing most practices?
Okay. So I think one of the blind spots is RCM right now. And I'm not actually gonna point a finger of blame other than to the industry that it hasn't solved this yet. As a whole, RCM, we are still struggling with getting that right. The payer system is a disaster and as frustrating as I'll get out. I think we're failing there. I would love to see reform in that area, and I know of some that are trying to figure out how to drive some of that. There was a senator, this was back probably 20 years ago. He said, "Why in the world would we have dental insurance? Like it's like insuring haircuts. Like what's the purpose? It's this weird exchange of money that would have happened anyway." And we know dental plans don't cover much. Maybe there's a, $1,000 or $1,500 a year or whatever. Um, it's so immaterial relative to everything else, yet it creates so much noise for the industry. Think about how much money and effort one doctor in one office is expending just to collect from the dental insurance groups. It is. That's probably one of my biggest frustrations, and I think everybody else is feeling the same way about it.
For anyone who's listening who's not a dentist, what you're basically saying is we have to spend money to get the money that we worked for.
Yeah.
That is a wild concept. Imagine if a graphic designer did his services and then had to spend money to collect his money and then continue spending money to fight for collecting his money. And not only his money, but his time and his peace of mind.
Oh, and if he doesn't give us his full Social Security number and all of this other information and submit that to us so that we can take a minimum of 2 to 4 weeks to process the payment and send it back to him, a and then he finds out, "Oh, it was denied because, oh, I wrote 1 digit on my Social Security number incorrectly," and now he's gotta go back and wait another 2 to 8 or, 2 to 4 weeks to hopefully get paid. Yeah, all of those are, it's really interesting, and I don't think that dental insurance brings near the value that everybody is programmed to in terms of, like, my health insurance and some of those other things. Um, Whoever created dental insurance, they created a lot of extra headache and work and waste in my mind.
I'm 100% with you. And it's one of these things where I like you called it reform because that's exactly what has to happen. And my hypothesis is that we just haven't been loud enough as an industry culturally. Culture has not seen that we are suffering as an industry and they don't recognize how bad this is. And so this is where I think platforms like this, the Happy Dentist, can be super helpful because in an ideal world, people are seeing this and we're starting to make some reform by just putting it out there and talking about it.
No doubt.
Well, Ken, listen, this has been such a pleasure. I feel like I've learned so much from you in the last 45 minutes. Where can people find you?
Sure. So I'm always available on LinkedIn. You could message me there, Ken at accrudent.com, or yeah, just yell loud enough. I try to get out to industry events as much as possible. I'd be happy to chat with anyone. If our services are something that makes sense, I'd be happy to talk about that. But if you just want to have a conversation, I am always game for that. That it feels like that's probably half of every day is just staying connected with everybody in the dental industry and finding out what's going on and helping everybody. So
I love it. And I have to ask, did you name your company AccruDent because of your love for accrual accounting?
you got it.
Wow. Wow. I love it.
In fact, I say this joke often, Ingrid, you'll appreciate this, but it's a cruel world out there.
I love it. That's cute. That's really cute. That should be your tagline.
Yeah. So yeah, we're on a mission.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show. This has been amazing, and I'm excited to share it with the world.
Thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure. Ingrid, you're a phenomenal host. I thought your questions were well thought out and planned. It was awesome.